When do you take away the keys? That's the question for us today on Caregiver Support Live. Welcome, everyone. I'm Denise Brown, and my co host is Jennifer Ritchie. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Denise.
Okay, we're tackling a tough one today.
Yes, we are.
And here we go. Here's the question from the letter writer. About a year ago, my mother, who is in her late 80s, was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. Since then, she has been dealing with health challenges that have increased her frailty and memory issues. She has always been a very proud, strong woman, and until recently, she had no trouble living independently. But her neurologist told her, in my presence and my siblings' presence, that she should no longer be driving. Our mother argued with him. She said, "How do you know? You've never driven with me." Later, he told us that her tests alone weren't conclusive and that his decision was informed by what my sibling and I reported, as well as another doctor's indication on her chart that she shouldn't be driving. The DMV has suspended her license, and my mother is irate, blaming us for instigating this and saying she never wants to see us again. She also keeps saying she's going to fight to get her license back, either by taking a driver's test or getting another doctor to dispute the decision. Meanwhile, we are concerned that she continues to drive despite the known consequences. For instance, if she gets into an accident, she could lose her house, her life savings, even if it's not her fault. But we have not yet gone so far as to take away her keys or put a lock on the steering wheel. My hesitation comes from the fact that she's basically said her life would not be worth living if she couldn't drive. I advised her to seek help for depression, but that is not something she will do. I have empathy for my mother being confronted with her deteriorating health, and I try to discuss it with her, but she is from a different generation and didn't grow up talking about her feelings. Unfortunately, she won't acknowledge that she's at an increased risk of harming someone else by driving. My question is, how do we know when it's time to take a drastic step?
This is a big one.
This is a big one.
And there's so many facets to this that I don't really know where to start. Because there's the logistical, like, let's talk about driving and how we assess it. There's the caregiver, the letter writer's feelings about all of this, and so torn, having been in this situation myself, completely understand. And then there's the mother who is losing her control over her life and doesn't feel like things have changed, but more than likely they have. So um, I have very close experience with this. My grandfather was 90 when he stopped. He was 95 when he stopped driving, but around 93, he was only driving 4 miles a day to the senior center and back. And one day he came home and said, there was this lady yelling at me in a parking lot. And we thought, oh, okay. And we had driven with him. We were comfortable with the side streets and, we have a pretty quiet town. So, but we knew this day would come. And he had said, if you take away my wheels, you take away my life. And he was very clear about that. We ended up doing um, it was actually meant for people who have strokes and brain injuries, but we were referred to someone from his doctor and they rode with him and they gave us a written report saying he should not be driving at night and he should be driving with someone else if possible, which was not the answer we wanted. He then couldn't pass the vision test at the DMV. And so rather than saying they took it away, he said, I decided it was time to sort of save his dignity, which we were absolutely fine with. So that I think was the best case scenario. Doesn't sound like that would go this way. Um, so I don't know, where do we want to go here? What do you think?
Okay, so to me, there's really a short answer to this question. When do we take the drastic step? It's now. When
Hmm.
two doctors have indicated that she no longer can drive, when her license has been suspended, there is no question about whether or not she can drive any longer.
Yeah,
It's time to step in and stop the driving, especially because she has a suspended, revoked license that is illegal for her to drive. That
yeah,
opens up a whole liability issue that the family does not want to go to. So, for instance, one thing I was thinking about, the mother saying, my life is not worth living if I can't drive. And I thought, your life is not worth living if you significantly harm someone
yeah.
because of driving. So we're not at a point where there is a conversation necessarily. This is a time to step in. This is an indication that it's no longer safe for her, for anyone in her community. And it is terrible to be in a situation where you have to take this drastic step and you just have to do it.
Yeah. And the question is how,
Right.
how is the
Yes.
best? And, with you bringing up that was my other thought is about it's not worth living. Life is not worth living. I would assume, but I would ask her why. What does driving give you? Um, I'm gonna say it's probably independence. It's probably being able to go where she wants when she wants. And we have never been in a period where we have more options for people to get places without driving themselves. We have Uber, we have Lyft, we have all these things, and there are also ADA accessible transportation options for people in wheelchairs and things like that. So those are options that I'm sure she hasn't thought about. Now that comes with risks as well. So, but those are there too. Um, but yeah, I think I obviously you're right. It's now. It's just how do we do it?
Yes, exactly. So, what I think is interesting is we want to go back to what you were talking about earlier, which
Mm-hmm.
is how do you know when it's time? So, we're in a situation with this letter writer that it's time. So, really, what they need to do is get the plan in place. And the
Mm-hmm.
plan is how do we stop the driving? And
Yeah.
she gave the options that she has, which is take away the keys, put a lock on the steering wheel. It could also be just simply selling the car, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds terrible. It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And it's important to just take that risk away. It's such a huge risk.
Mhm.
And it could be a conversation around it's just the facts, Mom. Two doctors and the DMV have indicated that you no longer can drive safely. We can't sleep at night worried about your well-being. And so we're going to take some steps so that we have a different plan for you to get to where you need to go.
Yeah.
So I would just kind of couch it that way. We're going to have a different plan for how you get to where you need to go. Where do you want to go every week? And then think through what are the options for transportation. It could be the letter writer and her sibling figure out some. And then,
Mm-hmm.
as you indicated, it could be using other kinds of services like Lyft or Uber. There
Mm-hmm.
is an app called Go Go Grandpa, which actually helps the older adults schedule rides with a rideshare app. So there's options out there. And it is important to provide transportation so she gets to where she needs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the other part that is going to sound a little goofy to say. She has mild cognitive impairment. She's already showing declines. The declines will continue. This is a moment in time, and because of her disease process, this moment in time will not be a memory she keeps.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a moment in time that she will forget. I know that sounds kind of odd to say it that way, but it's so helpful if you just think, you
Yeah.
know what? I am stepping in. I will remember that I had the courage to step in and remove this risk from my mom and my community. And I know it is just going to be something my mom will not remember. Now, there's no guarantee that she's not going to remember it for a period of time. Totally understand that. But
Mhm.
it's not for the rest of her life because of her disease process. And it's just, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and because of her disease process, it's not going to get easier. This is just going to
No,
get harder.
right. Yes. And the other thing is, so I coach clients who have gone through this situation, and not only are they concerned about the community, their caree, but the other piece of it is that their caree will get into an accident that's not their fault and not be able to do the right next things,
Mm,
like be able to interact appropriately with the driver who caused the accident, to be able to reach out for help, to be able to provide insurance. So there's that piece of it too that you want to just keep in mind. And
yeah.
it's really important to go back to your point, which is you want to bring back some control. You want to make sure that in exchange for the car not being an option, there are other options. So she is still fully participating in what she enjoys.
Mhm. Yeah.
The other piece of this is too, is the declines increase. Living alone independently is
Mhm.
just not going to be as possible as we would like.
Yeah.
So there's some other things to think about, which could be where does she live, where she enjoys independence, and it's not just managing alone in her own home.
And with that comes even more transportation options because oftentimes communities like that have shuttles that will go certain places every day, things like that. Um, One of the things you were saying about um, how to talk to them, I also think it's rather than saying you're not safe, saying I'm concerned, like this is a perfect example that you brought up, was I'm concerned about your safety with other people. We have to be defensive drivers. Obviously, we all know that. And when you don't have that quick response, you just can't. We're not necessarily worried that you're going to hurt someone. We're worried someone's going to hurt you. Now, it all depends on where you are with, if they are open to hearing that. But and I did in prepping for this episode, I did find some options that could be helpful in if you are still in that, like, I don't know, is this the time? And one of them was through AARP. I think it's called Safe Trip app, and it's an app that you download to their phone. And if you cannot ride with them yourself, this app sort of has the ability to measure the braking and the accelerating, and if it's excessive or different, drastically different from the other data it's collected. I don't know much more about it than that, but I thought that was such a great option to kind of look at. Okay, we can keep an eye on it if it's not to this point, or you're still at the this is coming, we don't know when. And I'm sure
Yeah.
there's others out there that we don't even know about.
Yeah, because I think if you are starting to wonder, you want to ride with your
Hmm.
aging relative to get a feel for how well do they do. And you can also look to see the state of their car because that will give you clues as well.
Yes,
And then you could use an app with their permission. I really would encourage you to get their permission before you
absolutely.
download this app on their phone, which also gives you data.
Hmm. That was one of the things with my grandfather. His car had little dings, and we hadn't
Yes,
noticed it, And
yes.
then once he said, "This lady at CVS was yelling at me," and oh, okay, so yeah, that's a really good point.
My brother and I would do a walk around the car on a regular basis to see how my dad was doing.
Such a good idea. Yeah.
Here's kind of a I'm not sure if this is a good idea or a possible idea, but the other thing that comes to mind for the letter writer, her mom might be unsafe living alone. It might not just be that she's unsafe driving, but she's unsafe living alone. And
Mhm.
maybe this is the time to think about a move. And it could be just positioned as, let's try this for a month and moving into a community like independent living for a month to see what it's like. And then hopefully that starts into full-time living in a community. The home is sold, the car is sold.
Mhm. Yeah. And you don't need to take your car because
Oh, there's
they've
plenty
got,
of transportation. Yep.
and you don't hear about it so much anymore, at least, well, maybe because they don't watch the news a whole lot, but um, there was a period of time where you heard about elderly folks running through parking barriers and running people down, and because they hit the wrong pedal. And I remember hearing about that happening all the time. I mean, if you're on the fence, you got to think about the possibility. I mean, they could kill somebody. Somebody could kill them. I mean, it's just, you hate to go there, but you got to think worst case scenario because how beautifully you said it, your life would not be worth living if something happened there.
No, absolutely not. And we have to take into account what quality of life means in this moment. And quality of life in this moment means the letter writer's mom is alive and she's no longer a danger to the community. And
Mhm,
she certainly can have a response and a reaction to this. Absolutely. She can be angry and upset, and they can allow and appreciate her response.
mhm,
And worried about that response and allowing that response to stop doing what's needed would not be a good decision.
mhm. You make me think of I was coaching someone years ago about this. She had just taken the keys away and her mom kept talking about how upset she was about it. And she's like, I wish she would just stop talking about it. And I said to her, your mom has the right to grieve this. This is a loss. This is a significant loss of independence and control, and her world is getting smaller, and she has a right, to do that. And let's honor that because, you'd feel the same way. You got to put yourself in that situation too. So it is such a complex situation though, and never easy.
And I think we take it personally when our Carrie is expressing a natural frustration to a loss. Oh, we did this to our Carrie. It actually wasn't that we did it to our Carrie. It was a
Mhm,
disease process
mhm.
that caused this
Yeah.
decision.
And this example is such a clear example of there are things in place, the DMV, the doctors who can report, you know, licenses being taken away and all of that. Let's let that work. The vision tests at the DMV, all of these things are there for a reason. They're blaring red lights at us. We can't ignore them.
And with that in mind, it could help to simply say to the letter writer's mom, unfortunately, the DMV revoked your license. It is illegal for you to drive. You are breaking the law by driving. We
Mhm.
cannot allow that to continue.
Yeah.
I don't want anything terrible to happen to you because you are breaking the law.
And it's out of their hands at this point. The law is telling them.
Yes, they have to. I mean, it's harder when you don't have those systems to blame.
Yeah.
DMV, doctors, they are there to blame. Blame them. The DMV
Yes.
said you can no longer drive. We have to follow the law on this.
Hmm.
If you get pulled over, we don't know what will happen, and we can only assume it's not going to be good. So
Hmm.
let's keep you safe. Let's figure out how to keep you safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a tool that we use in our dementia care family support program that's called an everyday function scale.
Mhm.
And we ask family caregivers a series of questions so they gain insights into their care's functional level. So the family caregiver completes this assessment and it gives insights into the care's functional level. And it's helpful to do this. We don't have something necessarily around driving, but we have enough insights that you can then start to connect the dots around where and for how long is your carry safe.
Mm,
And it's helpful to know that because it does kind of feel like I'm guessing here. I don't know. And
mm,
part of the guessing is I don't want to step in and do too much, but I don't want to step out and do too little. And
mhm.
that everyday function scale does give you insights that can be really helpful. And it's part of our dementia care family support program. And I'll put a link in the chat room. We also do it as a one-off session. So if you just want to have insights about where your carry is, you can schedule a session with a CCC and they'll do the assessment with you, which can be helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very complex. And I think the if you're seeing your aging parent having trouble with simple tasks in the home, imagine putting them behind a large motor vehicle, with the potential to do really serious damage. It's there are signs there way before this comes up.
Yeah. And just to reiterate what we talked about before, if you start to worry, take a ride with your carry driving and start to get into the habit of looking at the carry's car to see
Yeah,
what it looks like. And then in the state of Illinois, for instance, if you're over a certain age, you do have to take an annual driver's test and an annual vision test. So that's helpful
yeah,
because it is easier when there is a large system like the DMV that is making a decision that it's no longer safe to drive.
yeah. And it's not just an automatic license renewal. They have to go in and
Yes.
do those tests. So,
Yes. Yeah. It's a tough one. And I do think that we can take the emotion out of the experience, look at the facts. What are the facts saying?
mhm,
And then act. And it's okay that the carries emotions stay in the situation. Let them vent, let them be angry,
mhm,
let them know you appreciate how hard this is
yeah.
and that you want them to be safe.
And if this was the result of, let's say, a brain injury, we would have no problem doing this because it's a documented cognitive decline. But when it happens like this, and it's so gradual, and it's, you have to like really go with the facts. I mean, if this was anyone else in your life, if this was your child, even, and they had something going on where they were not safe on the road, you wouldn't hesitate to say something. Why is this so difficult now? And I think it's just because it's so hard, to see this happening.
It's so hard to feel like you're doing something that is causing so
Yeah,
much emotional distress for your carry.
yeah,
And again, you aren't. It's a disease process. What you are doing is effectively and responsibly managing the impact of a disease process. And that includes removing risk.
yes,
Okay, I think we did it.
yeah.
I'll include the resources that we mentioned today in the show notes. And feel free to share your own comments around your own experiences and what else you would add to the
Mhm.
insights we shared about this question. And if you have a question that you'd like to ask us, you can send us your question to the email questions@caringourway.com. And typically we meet on the first Friday of the month at noon Eastern time. So you can join us live too. And you can register to join us through our community caringourway.com.
We would love that.
Yes, we would. We enjoy it when we have a live audience because they always add such a it's such a robust experience when we have others chiming in to say their experiences and their thoughts. It's fun.
Yeah. It's a great crowdsourcing opportunity to like share.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Jennifer, for those viewers and listeners who'd like to be in touch with you and learn about how coaching can help them, what's your website address?
It's just my name, jenniferritchie.com.
Nice and easy.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody for watching and listening. We appreciate you and thanks for all you do. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.